Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's presentation. I hope you can hear me well. And yeah, we are about to start. So thank you all for coming. We have already a good number of participants here. So thank you for registering and for your interest. It will be my pleasure to do this presentation today on a very interesting, very wonderful personality through a very magical lens, a very fascinating lens of Vedic astrology. So maybe some of you don't know me. I will just shortly introduce myself and then we start with our presentation. I am Govinda Oliveira and I'm a Vedic astrologer by profession. I'm consulting for the past 8 years now and I have done about 1,000 consultations up to today. My journey to Vedic astrology, very briefly, my parents played a big role in my education in astrology as my family moved to India when I was 12. And in India, I moved to an international community focused on the study of Vedic sciences or the study of ancient sciences of India. So the Vedic sciences, hence I became a graduate of the Bhaktivedanta Academy of Vedic Sciences based in Mayapur, which is near Kolkata, India. So that is a little bit of my background. And today I'll be more than happy to share with you a little bit about astrology. And then, the foundation of what astrology is. A little bit of how to decode the horoscope. If you are curious of how astrologers do it, we'll give a simple yet very nice demonstration of how the chart is put together and how it is analyzed. And we're going to hear a lot about Buddha. And if you all have any questions or comments when it comes to Buddha's chart, we I'm more than happy to have you give in a little bit of your insights or comments. And we're going to have also space for questions at the very end. So I hope you all are well and ready, and we can start. So, yes. So what is astrology? Since we're starting this presentation on Buddhist astrology, let's a little bit first clarify about what is astrology and then what's Vedic astrology, since I am a Vedic astrologer and I'll be giving you an analysis of Buddha's horoscope from the perspective of Vedic astrology. So we're going to go there gradually. So astronomy and astrology, we hear about astronomy, the scientific subject, and astrology. So these two are both combined, and they have always been combined in the Vedas, ancient scriptures of India, where Vedic astrology is from, as well as in many other civilizations of ancient times. So let's have a look at that. So astronomy and astrology. What does astronomy mean, first of all? Astronomy is derived from the Greek word astronomia, which means the law of the stars. This is the mathematical calculation and analysis of the movement of the stars and planets. And then we have astrology. Astrology is the analysis of the effect of celestial bodies, planets and stars, on the events and lives of people on Earth. The Greek word astrologos means the study of the stars. So we have astronomia and astrologos, the law of the stars and the study of the stars. Now, some curious insights for you to know how astrology has been traversing through history and civilizations up to today. So first curious insight is most civilizations, India, Greece, Egypt, Mesopotamia, Rome, and Persia, among others, base their culture on complex systems of astrology. And we see that through the monuments they left. There are many monuments and amazing archaeoastronomical findings of several temples, pyramids, and fascinating constructions where it was very clear that these ancient civilizations knew that what the cosmos, the movements of the stars, the laws, and how we were connected to that. So this complex system of astrology provided a link between the cosmos and the events on Earth. So there was a calendar for sure to keep track of time, but also it did more than that. Did also some predictions. So we can see here that astrology was an important part of the curriculum at the medieval and Renaissance universities, including Padua, Bologna, and Paris. Their astrology was studied alongside mathematics, natural philosophy, and medicine. Medicine, that's actually something that Vedic astrology can also do. That is, I would say, a development, some postgraduate studies of astrology, Vedic astrology, where we can combine astrology with Ayurveda. I'm not sure if you have heard about Ayurveda. Some of you might have heard. Ayurveda is the ancient Indian way of medicine. So Ayurveda and Vedic astrology, they combine together to create something called medical astrology, which is fascinating. So the Vedic times, it was there, and also the medieval times. The Vedic times happen around 3000 BC. That is the recordings we have from astronomical, archaeological findings, excuse me. And the last curious insight we have is a vast majority of the astronomers of the past were astrologers too. So astronomy and astrology, they were studied both, as astrology and astronomy were one single subject until the 17th century. So here we have some evidence in the language of astrology. So we have like words like disaster from the Greek, which means evil star, disaster. So the word of medieval origin means the way stars and planets were deemed to be responsible for catastrophic events on Earth. So we can see this word in our vocabulary actually coming from a concept that stars had a very strong influence in what happens on Earth and with what happens with individuals. Hence, we're going to see Lord Buddha's chart because, it's not like someone like that who creates such a mark in history is just appears by accident. No, the alignments in which he appeared were very much characteristic to a great personality who was going to leave a lasting, extremely long-lasting impact on the civilization of Earth. So we can see a natural phenomena through astrology, and we can also see people's characteristics, which will come very soon too. Another word here is consideration. Very interesting. This is a word we use very often, and it also comes from an idea of astrology. So from Latin, we have the word considus. Con means with, and sidus means star. So in olden times, a big decision required careful consultation with the stars. Hence the word consideration. Have you considered? Have you consulted the stars? So that's very nice. And here we're gonna this is the only slide about this, where we're only gonna compare shortly Western versus Vedic astrology. I'm not sure if there has been a Western astrology horoscope on Buddha, but if if there has been one, it will differ from the horoscope we're doing today, because Vedic astrology, that's what we're going to be using, which is this one. It has its own calculation system, which is different from the Western astrology. So that's because we use a different type of zodiac. So Vedic astrology uses the sidereal zodiac, and Western astrology uses tropical zodiac. The tropical zodiac is based on the sun, and the sidereal is based on the movement of the stars. This is a vast subject which we can speak much longer about, but we're just going to touch base on these points. And if there's any further questions, I'll be at the end, I'll be very happy to expand on. But just before the chart, we're just laying down some foundational principles. So then we have the basis of the astrologies. Western astrology is based on Greek astrology, and Vedic astrology is based on the Vedas, the ancient scriptures of India. So that's our difference of preference. And Western astrology describes personality traits, which they're very good at, and many other things. Also, they focus on likes and dislikes. But Vedic astrology has its unique capacity to really deeply describe relatives, someone's career, and health. You might be telling me, well, but Western astrology can also do that, can't it? It can, and it does, but not as much detail. Like I'll tell you an experience. One of my first clients told me she was actually a yoga teacher. She had a yoga studio in Brazil, where I'm from, and she said after the consultation with me, she compared it to Western astrology, and she said this nice example. She said Western astrology tells me that the curtain is colorful. Just an example of like whatever subject she was dealing with. The curtain is colorful, and Vedic astrology tells me what the colors are. So it is just really much finer detail Vedic astrology can reach with its tools. And Vedic astrology focuses on prediction. That's a very interesting thing. And that's part of what we're going to look at in Buddha's chart, because not everything happens all at once, right? At first, he was in one situation in life. We're going to do the summary of his life. And then he went to a completely opposite station or situation. So how do we see that? We have to predict. And then we have the divisional chart in astrology, which are other tools, and it's karma oriented. Karma is a main factor of Vedic astrology, and we're going to see that in the upcoming slides. So a little more of Vedic astrology. Vedic astrology is called Jyotish in Sanskrit, which literally means the science of light. And Vedic astrology comes from the Vedas, how we explained, and it has a reputation for making predictions. And its focuses on karma because it considers, this is very important, it considers that the planetary alignments, which we'll be analyzing today, they are considered to be the karmas of the soul. So the karma is a central theme of Vedic astrology, which has either good or bad consequences. So the horoscope is a map, it's a manual of life, and it's also a blueprint of your whole journey, someone's life, someone's past, present, and future. So karma is actually a very interesting topic, which the Buddha himself also supported and preached about. So karma is a very important subject to understand, both to understand Buddha and his chart and to understand astrology. So we talk about the soul carrying karmas. So this is just one verse just to describe what is the soul according to the Vedas. As the sun illuminates all this universe, so the living entities within the body illuminates the entire body by consciousness. So it means that the soul is different from the body and the soul moves. Even when the body is gone, the soul continues. So that's a very important subject when we deal with astrology. Karma and astrology. So that's our next point. Karma is a Sanskrit word which means action, work, endeavor, and also reaction. So the basic idea is that what goes around comes around. And that's a very important topic, both in Buddhism, in Hinduism, Vedic astrology. And I thought, actually, someone pointed this out to me one day, and I felt, wow, this really resonates with, is a perfect combination of modern science and ancient philosophy. So I decided to add this for you in this presentation. It's the fundamental principle of physics, which is called the conservation of energy. And this makes all the sense when you think about karma. So let's see how it goes. This quote: energy can neither be created nor destroyed. Rather, it can only be transformed or transferred from one form to another. This, my dear audience, is nothing more than reincarnation from the perspective of the Vedas, which means that this conscious soul, our conscious being, is here today, was there yesterday, and it will be there tomorrow. Maybe in a different form, maybe not exactly the same, but it will never cease to be. So So as the soul moves with their karma, with the actions and reactions, it also carries with it um, all these results which we see in the stars. So when one has their horoscope or birth chart read by the astrologer, one will see how the planetary alignments are nothing but ripened fruits of one's individual karma. So karma doesn't always come back in the same life. So with planetary periods, we can predict when certain events will take place in someone's life. So that's another tool of astrology, which we use for predictions. So at last, karma, the particle of consciousness transmigrates from one body to the next. And in that transmigration to a new life, the soul carries the seeds of their good and bad actions performed in previous lives. Now, Buddhism and karma. We're getting very close to Buddha's horoscope now, and if you just want to get to the heart of his teachings, and you're going to see that very clearly in his chart when it's just coming. So here's one of the quotes of Buddhism: the impermanence of life is the cause of suffering, the constant change. And the wheel is the main symbol of Buddhism. And here's a couple quotes from Buddha on karma. Karma is a fair judge, impartially assigning consequences to our deeds. So that's clearly what we just discussed. Another final quote from Buddha: I am the owner of my actions, heir to my actions, born of my actions, related through my actions, and have my actions as my arbitrator. Whatever I do, for good or for evil, to that I'll fall heir. So it is very clear how Buddha fully embraced and spread the idea of karma. So Buddhist astrology, finally we are here. We are here to decode the destiny of the awakened one. So how is destiny decoded? And what are we going to decode today? So that's what we're going to come to. I have made a few preparations, but if anybody knows anything more about Buddha or would like to understand better, we can ask me questions out as we start reading the chart. So what is needed to calculate the horoscope? Details to be provided. For any horoscope to be done, we need three things: the date of birth, the time of birth, and the city of birth. That's it. Only three things. So with the information above, a qualified astrologer can make your horoscope. Decoding the chart. So these are the things we're going to be analyzing today. And this is just a succinct meaning of these subjects, and you might come back to it as we look at the chart. But just going to go through it one time so you see what we're going to be using today. So first of all, the zodiac. The zodiac is the tapestry, is the foundation of the horoscope. So what is the zodiac? The zodiac signs represent the actual star constellations along the path of the sun, as well as all the other planets. So the planets and the sun, they are moving over the zodiac. So that's what's happening. They're moving through the star constellations. So what is the ascendant? The ascendant, I'm not sure if you heard about it. If you are acquainted to astrology, you might have heard of such a thing as ascendant, but that is a very important thing, and that's where we're actually going to start our reading from. So ascendant or rising sign has a great influence on your personality and worldview. According to your ascendant, the rest of your horoscope is described. So first we're going to assess the ascendant of the chart. And then we're going to look at the houses. The houses correspond to several areas of life of an individual, such as wealth, health, career, marriage, values, destiny, and more. Many, many subjects are given by the houses in astrology. And the moon is a very important planet. The most planet of astrology is the moon. And we're going to analyze planetary conjunctions, where when planets get together in one house, that's something the astrologer immediately goes to and starts analyzing, because it's those conjunctions that really make a difference in someone's chart. And at last, to actually decode the destiny of Buddha, we need to know what is the destiny part of the chart. The destiny part is really connected to something called the Atmakaraka. which is the last point here. So Atma means soul, the self, what we just read about. And Karaka means representative. So the planet which represents the soul's journey is called Atma Karaka. And that planet will show what are the desires of that soul in this life, what are the challenges they're going to face, and what are the life lessons they need to achieve. So now you are shielded with all the proper information to dive into the horoscope. So who is Buddha? Gautama Buddha we're talking about. So Siddhartha Gautama. So originally he was called Siddhartha when he was younger, and his surname was Gautama. And he belonged to this Sakya clan of northern India at the foot of the Himalayas, which nowadays is Nepal, and was born in the Gautama family. His father was King Suddhodana. His mother was Queen Maya. And because of this, he became known as Shakyamuni, or the sage of the Shakya clan around China and Asia. They call him like that, first, especially in the beginning of Buddhism. So Buddha is also a title, which means the awakened one. So Siddhartha Buddha, which he became to be known after his enlightenment, he left his palace and eventually went to Bodh Gaya, a city in India, and there he achieved enlightenment. So this is a very short summary of his life, but we're going to get to the details, breaking them up into details by looking at his chart. So here we have, so when we do a chart, we usually put the person's birth name. So we have Siddhartha Gautama, which you know is Buddha. So here we have the date. Remember, we needed 3 important details to create a horoscope. So here we have the date, we have the time, and we have the city of birth. Then we can do a chart. So he was born on the 14th of April, 623 BC at around noon, 12 p.m. in Lumbini, Nepal, current-day Nepal. So now that his details are given, we were able to create this horoscope. And actually, you might wonder, because in my research, I found out that there's different opinions about his birth time and date and horoscope. But this chart and this date has been studied and analyzed by 4 very major and respected astrologers, and they all have come to the same conclusion. So I have adhered to them, especially Bangalore Venkataraman. That's my personal ancient teacher. He's also supportive of this view of the chart. So we are following on his footsteps today. And the more I studied it, the more it made sense. It's really clearly Buddhist chart. So let's start. So you have some idea of the main topics which we spoke back there, but don't worry, we will reintroduce them as we go step by step in this chart. So here we shall start with the ascendant. So I'm just see if anybody waiting to join. No, I have admitted everyone. Yes, good. Okay. So the ascendant is the beginning of the chart analysis. So here I put a line on what we call the ascendant. His ascendant, Buddha's ascendant, happens to be in Cancer. So we spoke about the zodiac and the zodiac signs, remember? So Cancer, Aries, Libra, these are all the zodiac signs where, as you can see this design here, they are like the tapestry of the zodiac. They are behind everything. And now we're going to look at the ascendant, which is the most important sign, which represents the nature of Buddha, the main nature of his. And that's the first house, which indicates self. So what does that mean? So Cancer is a sign of emotions, is a sign of the mind. and of the home as well, and of the heart. It's the original sign of the heart, actually, Cancer, which means people of this sign are very empathetic. They're very caring people. They like to nurture others, and they have a very developed mind. This naturally is the original sign of the mind connected to the moon, Cancer. So indeed, and Cancer also represents the beginning of life. The ascendant represents the beginning of life. So as we hear, I'm not sure if you have heard, but the story tells that Buddha, he he was born, as we heard, he's a son of a king, so he was a prince, right? Prince Siddhartha. So that means he was born extremely wealthy and very comfortable, luxurious life he had. So the ascendant is going to show us this. So his ascendant is Cancer and is a sign of the home. It is very interesting that actually his father was very afraid to have his son, what do you call, he wanted to hide from him that there was misery in the world. That's what the most famous facts about his life. He was literally locked in the palace of his family, of his kingdom, for the beginning of his life. He without ever going out. So you can see the beginning of life is at home, literally at home. For I believe he only left the palace at 29. I'm not sure when was the first time he went out, but at least 16. He was 16 years at least inside the palace. Now, to understand, well, how great, how fortunate he was, you have to see where is the moon, because the moon rules the sign of Cancer. So this is the ascendant, which represents the foundation of the horoscope. And now we want to know, does this person have potential in life? Can this person grow? Are they going to be able to make a difference? For that, we need to see the ruler of the ascendant. And in his case, that is the moon. So his moon is here, situated in the fourth house, in the sign of Libra. The best thing about this moon here is that his moon is full. It's right opposite the sun. So this is astronomical detail. So when the moon is right opposite the sun, that is something that happens in the cycle of the moon. So when this happens, the moon is called full. It can fully reflect the light of the sun. So he was born a full moon day. So having a full moon is the best state the moon could be. So his chart is all uplifted by that full moon. And the moon is in the fourth house, which is the house of the heart. So he's also someone very connected with his heart, very compassionate, very kind. So this is the very beginning of a chart analysis. And I just want to do it slowly. But we have also here a slide with the main details of his life. So where we could go a little more, how do you call, not as much detail, but pointing out the main points which created these results. So Buddha was born a prince. How can you see princehood and this kind of royalty karma? We can look back at his chart. The main planet to do connected with connected with prince, with governor, with authority and wealth and power is the sun. So his sun is right here. And this is the sign of Aries, where the sun is situated. So Aries is a sign of exaltation of the sun. So some planets, all planets are strong or weak in different places. Now, the sun is exalted or extremely powerful in Aries. So when someone has a powerful sun, these people can go to the heights of authority, power, and influence. And he has such a sun. And it so happens that his sun is also in the 10th house, which is the house of government, of leadership, of power, of influence. And we know that he did that, not exactly how his father wanted. His father wanted him to become the next king. We know from history that's not what happened, but he still had a lot of influence and power in his life. So from birth, he had it, being born a prince. And later on, he carried on that capacity. And the very interesting thing about this is being born a prince means being born in a royal family, isn't it? Well, in astrology, there is a house for the family where we can understand what are the main characteristics of the family. So that is the second house. So right after the ascendant, we have the second house, which is the house of family. In his chart, the house of family is ruled by Leo. This is the sign of Leo. And Leo belongs to the sun. So again, we have the ruler of the house very powerful. So just like the moon is very powerful, uplifting his ascendant, which is his personality, his good character, we also have the sun uplifting the second house, giving him a very, how do you call, wealthy, powerful, and influential family. Especially Leo is a sign of the king. Leo is connected to the lion, the ruler of the jungle. So definitely his family was, they were rulers, they were powerful and influential. So that is very clear by a very strong sun ruling the house of family in Buddha's chart. That's that. And then very interestingly, how did he call himself? It seems from research that he called himself Tathagata, which means one who has gone or one who has arrived, which means movement. That's another of his ways to show about the impermanence of life. One moment I'm here, one moment I'm not. However, I would like to show an interesting point in his chart. He actually has something called a Raja Yoga, which is to do with this name he gave himself, which is Tathagata, always moving, right? Always on the move. So his ascendant is Cancer, and Cancer is a movable sign. Cancer is connected to the river. The river is a very adaptable and flexible and fluid. It's water, and it always changes its course, isn't it? If there's like a mountain or a tree, the river will just go around it. So whoever has a flexible ascendant, because the zodiac signs are divided into different natures. So having a flexible sign makes the person adaptable and also makes them change the goal of their life. They're not so focused on the goal, but they're very focused on the process. The process is the most important for people with this kind of ascendant. And he had the moon and all these five planets here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 planets and the moon, which makes it 6 planets altogether in movable signs, because Aries and Libra are also movable. So his nickname to himself is very correct, because everything in his chart shows he's a moving person, moving in thoughts, moving physically and spiritually. He was very flexible and fluid person that way. So yeah, so when someone has many planets in the signs, they are people who can they have success in life when they start something new that nobody has ever done before, and when they go beyond the borders of their nation, when they spread internationally with something new and never done before, these people achieve success. But that's like the secret of success for different alignments in the chart. So his trajectory of life perfectly suited his alignments, because he started Buddhism, which was never heard of before him. And his doctrine went much beyond the borders of Nepal, India, Asia, and so forth. So it was a complete success. That's the Raja Yoga combination. You don't have to be Buddha to have a Raja Yoga. It's actually a very common yoga, which many of you might have actually. So that's a good tip to remember. If you have a Raja Yoga and you feel like you're always moving and changing, perhaps you have to be a pioneer and an innovator and do something new. Don't go along the regular path. At least if you have a Raja Yoga, that won't go too far. So test it. And then we have another point, which he got married at the age of 16 with Yashodhara. So marriage is something we can see also in astrology. And he got married relatively early. So how's that? Well, his marriage, because at that time, especially in India, it was a culture the marriages were arranged. right? So people they were arranged. It wasn't so much by choice, but by the parents and families were arranged. So here we see the seventh house. The seventh house is the house of marriage. Um, and you can see this is a sign of Capricorn in astrology. So Capricorn is a very practical sign, which means that he got married for practical reasons. That was probably what was asked, was expected of him when he came to marriageable age, which was very early that time. He did it dutifully. So he had a dutiful way, a practical way, a Capricorn way of dealing with that situation. But you'll find out there's more to that scenario. Um, he left home, wife, and child at age of 29. Saturn return. So what does that mean? So how do you see in someone's chart that someone's going to have a short-lived or could have a short-lived relationship? Because in his case, he left home and he never came back to a marriage life. So you could say that he had a very short, um, you know, household experience. So let's go back to that. So the how we can see this that actually there's a weakness in his seventh house of marriage. Even though it's a very powerful chart so far, how we spoke, every chart has its weaknesses, right? So his seventh house of marriage, as we said, belongs to Capricorn, the sign Capricorn, and to the planet Saturn. So Saturn is the ruler of the seventh house of marriage and the seventh house of sensual pleasures. His Saturn is in Aries, which happens to be debilitated or weak. So when a planet is weak, it cannot give the results of that subject that it rules, or it gives delays, separation, lack of satisfaction, etc. So Saturn definitely gave separation. Saturn indicated, the weakness of Saturn connected to the seventh house, gave him separation from wife, and also his own lack of desire, because the seventh house and the eighth house are house of these sensual desires. So having a weak Saturn just gave the Buddha this lack of passion, and it's actually perfect because you see his path is a path of celibacy, so much so that he has founded something called sangha, which is this monasteries for other monks and celibates to reside. So it was his natural tendency. So you can think as a negative quality. Yes, if he was to be married all his life, then this is not a good position. But because he chose to go the celibate path, it was more than easy for him having a weak Saturn, so-called weakening, that's those passions and desires. And also indicating a separation. Saturn always causes separation, so separation from wife is there because of that. And separation from the sun. You might think, I've heard from what my research is that very soon after that his son was born, he left home. So that means not much time with the sun. You can also see that in astrology, that some people have like a very how do you call, close relationship with their son or not. So as Saturn creates distance in general, it is very close to what? To Mars. And Mars happens to be the planet of children in his chart. Mars is the ruler of the fifth house of children, which is right here in the horoscope. And Mars is very close to Saturn. So that's also creating a distance with the sun. Not, I mean, it wasn't the whole life. They did meet again, but for a good amount of time, it seems like they were apart. And it was not the same afterwards. When the Buddha became enlightened, it wasn't the same dynamics, father-son relationship. So that's that. Um, Also, I mentioned here Saturn return. Watch out, everyone, about the age of 29. That's an age that you should pay attention to. It, of course, a huge change in life happened for Buddha from living like a prince to living in the forest. Very radical change. Um, this is not that radical for most people, but still, Saturn is a planet which moves very slowly, and it takes around 30 years to go around the horoscope, the zodiac, and the horoscope for that sake. So when you were from the age between 28 to 30, those 2 years, we call it a Saturn return. And at that time, there'll be some major like karmas, major things, maybe like aspects about yourself, desires, opportunities that just were never there before, and then they just mature or manifest. So Saturn return is very powerful, and in Buddha's chart, that's the age he left home, and for 6 years, and he was very dedicated to his meditation and path. So we spoke about celibacy already with Saturn and positive Mars. Then he is the founder of Buddhism. That's no small feat. How do you see that? That you can found something, that you can be, that you can, like your, this is basically, of course, it's much bigger than a profession. It's not even a profession. He's a founder and an enlightened being in so many things. But in astrology, this is all can be seen through one single house, which is the house of, for ordinary people, is the house of career or profession. But in the larger sense, the house, the 10th house, is the house of how do you call, of the work, the gift that you do to the world, what you offer to the, what you're going to give to the world. Usually it's our profession, but in Buddha's case, it was much more than that. Let me just put this to chart. Okay, there we have it. So yeah, let's go back to see that. So how come he was the founder of such a huge movement, which is still standing today, called Buddhism? So here we have the Gola Yoga. He has 5 planets, which we saw, in one place, in the 10th house, which is a very powerful house, the house where we, which is our work, our endeavor, the manifestation of our dharma or our mission is the 10th house. So he has those 5 planets in that 10th house, giving him a stupendous achievement. So we're going to go back to that. Remember here that this is the 10th house, number 10. And here we have 5 planets, including a very powerful sun. Remember we spoke that sun is exalted in Aries. We have Mars is a very good planet. Jupiter is an excellent planet. So Jupiter is a planet of expansion. So means his job, which is his work, let's say his gift to the world, he's gonna be expanding. What is he expanding? He's expanding people's consciousness, right? And Jupiter especially makes the person teacher and someone respected by their knowledge. So the 10th house, also the house of reputation. What kind of status and reputation you get? Well, when you have Jupiter, which is a planet of wisdom, you become known as a very wise being. If you have a sun, which is his case, then you have this authority and also leadership and vision. So he has that as well. And with the Mars and Saturn, these 2 planets, these are more rigid planets and they're connected. Mars is a soldier in astrology, so it's connected with strength and discipline, and Saturn also very much connected with austerity and detachment. So it's very much everything that Buddha was. And we also have one more thing, which is Venus. Venus now, a little bit different. Venus is more to do with compassion and kindness. So if there was no Venus, he couldn't have been Buddha, because that's a big thing in his approach to life. He used to treat people equally. So the Venus is there, indicating that love and compassion. And another point that shows his quality of equality, I think I have made this point here. Yeah, compassionate, kind, friendly, treated everyone equally. Libra moon. So he had a Libra moon. And the Libra moon, it's actually perhaps the most important aspect of his equality, because at that time in India, there was the caste system, even today to some extent, but at that time there was actually some issues happening with the caste system. It was being misappropriated. there were people who were misusing their power by saying, oh, I was born in a higher class, so you have to listen to me. And abuse of power was going on, and there was a lot of discrimination at that time. So he, um, just being so open and accepting of rich, old, high status, low status, women, men alike, that was very unique in his time. And that's very much a moon in Libra kind of thing to do. Because Libra, as you may know, is a sign of the scale, which is always trying to balance things. So he's trying to balance, he was looking for harmony, equilibrium, and equality. That's the main thing. Justice and fairness are like, it's like the surname of Libra. So his moon there made him just that, and the full moon, so even more. So yeah, so that's one of the reasons why he was like this. And one more quality of his is that he was very intelligent, obviously. I mean, it was one of the main qualities of his. He's very intelligent, detached, eloquent. So I want to catch on that quality. He has so many qualities, but we have to select a couple to demonstrate them. So here I have Mercury in Taurus. So Mercury in Taurus is going to give us this eloquence. Why is that? That's so here is his Mercury in the sign of Taurus. So Taurus is a sign of the speech, and it's connected to Venus. Now he has a Mercury, the planet of communication, in the sign. So when someone has Mercury in Taurus, they are known to speak very pleasingly, to have a poetic tone to their speech, and they are known to give religious or spiritual discourses on subjects of spirituality. So definitely, like for example, if there's a priest or a pastor or a preacher from of some religious movement, they have to have a very, how do you call, a very positively placed Mercury, especially connected to religion. In the case we have Mercury in Taurus. So yeah, he has that. I mean, he wasn't exactly religious, and Taurus is not religious either, but it was very, very beautifully said, very beautiful statements. For example, he created the four principles of life and many other things. So yeah, and we have at last of this slide, we have this. So after this last point, I'll be have a, how do you call, make a categorical pause for comments, and then we can move into the next slide for the continuation of the analysis. So the last point which I wanted to make in this slide is he established nirvana, emptiness, as a state of ultimate liberation. Now, that's also a house in astrology, liberation. There is such a thing in the Vedic concept, in Buddha's concept, in Buddhism, and also in astrology. So what does that mean? That is shown by his Rahu in the house of liberation. So you might not know what Rahu is. So I'm just going to give us very, very, very simple explanation of Rahu. Basically, Rahu and Ketu, these are not astronomical bodies. We cannot see them. They are actually astronomical points. They're mathematical points. And in astrology, they are also very karmic points. Everybody has them somewhere. Some people might know them to create trouble or difficulty, but not always, especially if they are positively placed in your chart. So in Buddha's chart, his Rahu is extremely positive in this sign, which is the sign of Gemini. So his Rahu is in Gemini. So Gemini is said to be the sign of exaltation of Rahu. So so what is happening? So that means it's positive. Now, what is a Rahu positive in the first place? Rahu shows in the chart that area which we are seeking. It's the place where we don't know much about, but you have a deep desire to dive deeper, and there's nothing that can stop the person from going to that direction and finding out about that. So everybody has this so-called obsession or missing kind of experience in life, which they wouldn't have. So in Buddha's charts, that Rahu, which shows his deep eagerness, and how do you call it? Yeah, goal, it's in the 12th house, which is the house of liberation. It's the house of metaphysical things. It's the house of the mind, the subconscious, and energy, and everything that is anti-material, not physical. So yes, so he had the Rahu in the 12th house. So even though he was born so opulent and so rich and so supported in so many ways, his real hankering was actually to give up everything. The 12th house is the house of letting go, of renunciation, of detachment as well. So he was actually really happy when he could experience that. And that's what he did. He lived 6 years in the forest, had almost barely nothing to eat or drink. So that was his longing and also his goal. At the end, he established nirvana, or basically letting go of everything, even of one's own self as the goal. So he really went that direction. So because Rahu is very powerfully and positively strong, then he attained it. You know, if someone had a negative Rahu in the 12th house, there could be different types of results. In Buddha's case, it was a very positive kind of Rahu. So yeah. So yes. Let me open here the gallery. So how do you all feel about this? Are you all with me? Some things could be too fast or too slow for some, but I'm just wondering if you have any comments or thoughts about the presentation so far.
Hi, Govinda. My name's Mina. And so far, really great and a really good pace and really great information. And so I was just wondering, Rahu, is that the North Node?
Yes, very well
North
said.
Node.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
in Western astrology, they're known as the nodes, the north and the south node. So Rahu is the
Yeah.
north node of the moon, and Ketu is the south node of the moon. Yeah.
Okay. And so then looking at that opposition as the South Node, what did the South Node mean for Buddha as well?
I had a feeling that someone was going to ask about that. I was like, I just spoke about the Rahu. I think someone's going to be like, what about the other one? And that was
Yeah.
you. Okay, good question. So let's a little. What was the other one doing? Good. So, the other one is Ketu. So Ketu is the south node. So the south node is basic, as you see, they're always opposite each other. Maybe it's actually not so easy to see, but in the chart, this is called opposition. They're actually 180 degrees from each other, and they are 180 degrees different in what they mean, the south and the north node. So Rahu, we spoke, is our obsession, is what you really want to do, and you have never done before. Ketu, being the exact opposite, is exactly what you have already done so much of that now it's almost like a subconscious habit and skill and even a talent. Ketu shows talents and gifts which we are carrying from previous lives and think that it's easy for us to do. It's almost like, oh, show me that. Oh, okay, I did it. You don't even know how you did it. That's Ketu. So you don't even care for that because it comes to you so naturally. So that's the energy of Ketu. So in his chart, his Ketu is in the 6th house in Sagittarius. So what does that mean? So the 6th house is the house of regularity, discipline, schedule, minute details. Yeah, so he having the Ketu there means he was a naturally self-disciplined person. People with the Ketu in the 6th house are naturally scheduled, naturally disciplined, naturally organized. He didn't have to endeavor for that. So his skills, he already had that. He already worked and thought in very systematical ways, and he liked to do everything in steps. So Buddhism is also very much like that. You know, all the steps are given to different types of meditation and everything. So he was a very regulated person naturally. That's what Ketu is showing here. And also the 6th house is the house of service. So when someone has Ketu in the 6th house, it's another actually alignment of someone who rises to a high position in life. Actually, it's said that with the Ketu in the 6th house, you have the highest position in your family. So even though his father was a king and he had a royal family, by his own spiritual advancement, he became much higher It's actually even said that after 2 years after enlightenment, he went back. 2 years or sometime after enlightenment, he went back to his family, and he basically converted them into the philosophy, and they joined him. So he became the most important person eventually in his family, even by that. The other thing about Cato is that Cato is in Sagittarius. And Sagittarius is a sign of religion. So also means that he had being born a Hindu, his family was in India. So he was already knew about karma and so many things growing up. So it means that for him, it was, he knew about the Vedas and at that time, the religion, So yeah, he was how do you call, familiar and acquainted and well versed, so to say, in religious conduct. So hence he could also easily convey many nice religious, not religious, how you call, but moral, pious, very ethical, because Sagittarius is not just religion, but also principled and ethics. So he was also naturally principled, naturally accepting, and held himself in high standard. That's also very much a Ketu in Sagittarius thing. So yeah, so that's what he didn't have to strive for. Ketu is just what he came with naturally. What he strived for, that was Rahu in the 12th house. So yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Very good question. You comment. Yeah. Anyone else have any other comments?
Hello. I wonder if you mentioned something about his third house and his eighth house, or shortly, like, yeah, the third, eighth, and the ninth house. Thank you.
Okay, you want to know what they are about, or in his chart?
In his chart, because you didn't mention about these houses. If you like to mention something, thank you.
Sure. Okay. True. So people ask, oh my God, this house is empty in my chart. What does that mean? That means I'm not gonna have that that. So don't worry, it's not like that. Empty houses are not bad, especially when he has 5 planets in one house. Naturally, some houses are gonna be empty. There's just what you just see, like the chart is like the sky, and the sky is vast, right? It's 360 degrees all around. And there's 12 segments, 12 houses, and 9 planets. And the planets are not always everywhere. And even if they were spread out, they couldn't be in all the houses at the same time. There's always going to be some empty houses. That's not a question. But that doesn't stop the astrologer from analyzing those things. There's so many ways to analyze those things, even without planets in there. It's just easier to mention the places where the planets are there. It's just a little more clear. There's more energy usually where there are planets. So in his case, having so many planets in the 10th house, he had so much energy to give to people, and to establish something great for humanity. And the other houses are a little bit less, right? So just very shortly explaining his third house. The third house is the house of communication. And this is a sign of Virgo. So Virgo is a sign of perfectionism, of detail, and also literary skills. So he spoke very methodically and very clearly, very intelligently. Virgo's a very intellectual sign, a very intelligent sign. So having the third house there just means his speech is very well thought of and very, perfect, so to say. He really works on his words very consciously, very conscientiously. That's it. That's what you can say for the third house. And the third house belongs to Mercury. Mercury's in the 11th, as we said. Very pleasant, very beautiful speech. And then we have the 8th house. I spoke about it shortly. The 8th house is a house of sensual desires. It's also the house of many things. It's a very complex house. There's actually a house of complexities or blockages or difficulties. The 8th house. So his 8th house is ruled by Saturn, and Saturn is in the 10th. So, which means that Saturn is bringing some blockages to his 10th house. So there was some impediment to him spreading, for first of all, for him growing and elevating himself, and then to also conduct his doctrine. I mean, first of all, the obstacles from his father, not wanting him to leave the palace, and then he was in a society where people had different views. So that was also an obstacle, the pressure from society. So that's the energy of the eighth house of obstacles that went to the 10th. And then at last, the ninth house, which you asked, the ninth house is the house of travels, long distance travel. And it's also the house of the father. So his ninth house here is a sign of Pisces, which makes the person, in terms of travel, makes them want to go to distant places, to recluded, retreated, isolated places. And his father, as we know, was the king. So this house here, the ninth house, is ruled by Jupiter. And this Jupiter is in the 10th house, along with all these planets. So we can see that his father was a very prominent, important, authority, respected person, because his Jupiter is all here in the 10th house. Anybody has the ninth lord, the planet of the father, in the house, in the 10th house, the father is always going to have a good reputation, will be well known and influential. In his case, it's just much, much more times that, because of all the planets here, which made his father a king. So yeah, so we can say this. So is that
Thank
okay?
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice. Let's look at some other. So we only have, even though it looks a little longer, there's only 3 points here. I think the last points that I have prepared. So from 35 to 80, this basically the end of his life, Gautama Buddha spread his teachings throughout India. So he traveled a lot, as we saw in his chart. He has a good, powerful traveling ninth house. Rich and poor, men and women, king and slaves, young and old, all were equal in his community. So we spoke about Libra, the moon in Libra, making him equal to everyone, but also Saturn. Saturn is also a planet of the masses, the ordinary people, so to say, or the less privileged people. So his Saturn is in the 10th house, meaning that his career, his job, which is, that's how we see it in astrology. Sorry, I just have the standard terminology. In his case, his mission, right? His practical mission in the world was not just for a specific kind of people, it was for everyone. So when you have Saturn in the 10th house, these are the kind of people nowadays who have like big companies, or who work for the government, or who provide a service where thousands or millions of people can benefit from. So Saturn is that planet which encompasses everyone. So having that Saturn in the 10th house of his mission make him do something which was available to all indiscriminately. That's a very Saturn thing to do. Yes, Mina.
I just have a question. With Saturn being a malefic in the 10th as well, would he have attracted difficulties and then opposition as well through his actions?
So actually, he didn't have much opposition. I mean, there are different stories about opposition. So yes, Saturn and Mars and Sun, actually, these 3 planets are malefic, right? So we can say more malefics than benefics in the 10th house. So there's definitely lots of obstacles. But this 10th house is too strong to be disturbed even by Saturn. So much so that Saturn is actually weak, remember? Saturn is weak in Aries, so it cannot do much harm to him. And we have a very strong Sun and a very strong Mars and Jupiter. So the strength of his 10th house, it's like, even though there would be attacks, he wouldn't be bothered or defeated or actually stopped in any way. So yeah, the Saturn is not doing that much of a problem for him.
Oh, cool.
And then, so then the last thing we have is 2 years. 2 years after his awakening, we said the Buddha visited the family. I said Cancer ascendant, I mentioned. So usually Cancer people are very connected to the family and very concerned, very attached to family members. And he is a Cancer ascendant. But you might wonder, but he gave up everything and he preached non-attachment. Well, maybe he preached that out of his own experience. because usually Cancer people are known to be very attached to family. And when he went out of the palace the first time and saw the misery of the world, he felt like, so everyone's gonna die and get old and sick, even me and my dear family. So he went out to his search for enlightenment so he could actually help his family and himself, who was very dear to him, to get out of the cycle of karma, right? And birth, death, old age, and disease. So it's out of compassion and in a way, attachment to them that he went out for the benefit of more of people, so much so that even after he got enlightened, he could have just continued on, but no, he went back to his family. So having a Cancer ascendant shows connection with family and concern for relatives. So he actually, even though he was preaching non-attachment, he still cared for the highest benefit of his family. So he went back for that. And at last, we have many members of the royal family. I already spoke about this at the beginning, how his family is royal because of the sun being very strong, and the second house of family being Leo, the sign of power. So the many members of the family joined the Sangha. Like I said, they joined the first order of Buddhist monks. Amazing. Including Buddha's son, Rahula, sun exalted in Aries. So there was a reunion. Let's say his son, understood and became a follower, even a disciple of Buddha. So his son, so the fifth house is the house of the child. In astrology, we can see first, second, third, fourth child, if there are, and we can also see first, second, third marriage if there is such a case. So in Buddha's case, he only had one child, from what I heard, and this child, Rahula, in the chart is seen by the fifth house, which means children in general, but especially the first child and the only child for Buddha. So this fifth house in his chart is ruled by Mars. The sign of Scorpio ruled by Mars. Where is this Mars? Buddha's Mars is in Aries. Aries happens to be another sign of Mars. So Mars rules these two signs. So it's actually well placed, the Mars. So when the planet of the child in someone's chart is well placed, the relationship with a child, even though it might have some problems or issues like we saw with Saturn, there was some separation, he didn't grow up with a father, still, because the Jupiter is well placed, because Mars is well placed and is together with good planets like Jupiter, there's that karma was going to be there sooner or later, where there was going to be some reunion, reconciliation in a way with his son. And we can see that in astrology through the periods. I could not add this to this presentation because I thought it would become maybe too vast or complex. But in astrology, you have the periods of phases where someone goes through. So when someone enters a phase, those kind of karmas happen. So in his chart, I believe when there was like a Jupiter, Mars kind of phase, that could have been the phase where he met his son again. And there was a betterment in the relationship. Because I know for sure from research that when he entered the Saturn period, that's when he left home and left, the wife, the home, and went off for his mission. So Saturn activated his mission in the world at the age of 29. So yeah, that's the last point I have selected. So this is Buddha's chart for you all. And in the end, I have some other observations of the planets in astrology, but if you have any comments, I'll be happy to, discuss them. Yeah.
Thank you, Govinda. Thank you very much for this vast explanation. And when you explain, it seems like so not simple, but understandable. But for example, if I would look myself, of course, I don't have such astrological education, but just like question that comes to my mind, like what kind of qualifications should you have to learn astrology? Maybe you could tell about that.
Oh, that's a big question. Big question. Well, actually, yeah. For me to start explaining this, I would have to explain many other things, which you might not have time to get to. But in very short summary, the main book of astrology is called Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra. And in that book, all the laws, requirements, qualifications, everything that you need to learn astrology and to be qualified to learn astrology are there. So in this book, there's a section where the qualifications of an astrologer are given. And really the main thing is that the person is truthful. You want the person to be a truthful character, to be honest. And this is really the main quality in this age. You know, someone who can be truthful, they are how they call eligible to learn Vedic sciences. So all you need really is humility to be truthful and to connect yourself with the right sources. So just like any Vedic science, we need to be connected to the teachers. So it is not a science where you just pick up a book and learn things yourself. You need to accept it from someone who has applied it and realized in their life. So to have that passed on to you is very important, because as an astrologer, you're becoming a consultant, a guide to other people. So, but before you become a guide and a consultant, you have to be open to be guided and taught as well. So accepting a teacher is very important. So I accepted teachers, you know, people who want to learn, they should also accept that. So then they get carried, they can carry the realizations of their teachers, and that's going to speed up so much more their progress than if they were just were to learn by themselves. Like so many tools of astrology I learned from my teachers directly and not from the books. So yeah, there are other qualifications, like this person, the astrologer should be someone who's clean, someone who wakes up early and meditates, and many other things. Luckily, because I grew up in the Hare Krishna movement, we have that routine already. So that's part of the lifestyle. So you want to live in a most clean way as possible. You want to be a vegetarian, you know, refrain from meat eating. And because these things, they really help clear your ability to see. Because astrology is, it's not just mathematics, but it's also a subtle connection. And for you to be subtle, you need to be clean or pure. You try to have a pure life, so to say, so you can become a better instrument to help others. So yeah, this is some of the things we are trying to practice. You ask me, I feel like you still have to develop so much myself, but it's good to know. I think it's good to try, and it's not bad. Even if you're not an astrologer, these are all good things to become: truthful, organized, respectful, clean, like that.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so
Hello. I have a question.
yes.
Yes, thank you. Will you elaborate, like, what would be the equivalent in, like, in the Vedic? Do you have like the Arabic parts or Egyptian decans? And then, like, what is regarding asteroids and modern planets? Are they considered? So it's 4 questions. Sorry. Yes, thank you.
The planets in astrology.
No, so my question is, what will be the equivalent? For example, when you, like the colleague mentioned, so Rahu Ketu is North Node, South Node, and so I wonder if there are like Arabic parts, what would be the equivalent? The Arabic parts are like the lot of Fortune, the lot of Spirit, and the Hermetic lot, and then they like, it's just to know, like, because in many cultures there are like these equivalents. Then there is the question about the Egyptian decans, if you have some equivalent. The decans are like the hours of groups of 10 days that are 36 decans. So is this it's just I don't know if you have equivalent. And then do you use modern planets like Pluto or Neptune? And then the other question, or if it's already too much question, sorry. Yeah, it's about asteroids, like if you work with asteroids. It's just, or the equivalents, or I don't know, just if you'd like to share. Thank you so much, and sorry for many questions.
Oh, thank you. So, well, to know the equivalent, we have to know what the other thing is. So unfortunately, I don't know about the Arabic or Egyptian things. So I won't be able to answer those questions at all today, because there's not enough research to see. So you need to excuse me, I might have to answer you later. First, I'll find what they are, and then I see if we have equivalents. About the planets in astrology, that's actually the next point. So maybe you wait for the next slide. I think we'll be able to answer your question, because my next slide is exactly about the planets in astrology. So we can discuss that. The planets. So yeah, we don't use asteroids and other things. And Vedic astrology doesn't include Neptune, Uranus, or Pluto either. And this is because I'll explain here. So what do we count as planet and why we count them as such? That's what we're gonna discuss here. So what are the planets? So the 9 planets in Jyotish are called Navagrahas in Sanskrit. Sanskrit is the language of the Vedas. It's the ancient language of India, just like there's Latin and Egyptian, other ancient languages. Sanskrit is like the mother language of many other languages that came later. And yeah, many of these words, yoga, karma, Ayurveda, they are all from Sanskrit. So naturally, Vedic astrology is also Sanskrit. It's called Jyotish. And the planets in astrology are called the Navagrahas. So Nava means 9, and Graha means that which seizes or grasps. Graha. Graha actually sounds like grasps, isn't it? It has the same 3 letters. So a Graha is a title given to a celestial body with, now listen to this is what makes it a Graha. Not a planet per se, but a graha. A graha is a title given to a celestial body with the capacity to hold and deliver karmic results. That's what we're looking at, because as we said before, karma is a central theme of Vedic astrology. So thus, planet is not the scientific term, but the closest term we can give. So planet is actually not the best translation for the Navagrahas of astrology, but it's the closest thing we can get. So according to astronomy, the sun is a star and the moon is a satellite planet. More a satellite, who was believed to be an asteroid, but later became a satellite planet of the Earth. But in astrology, like you must have heard me explaining, the sun and the moon, we count them as planets, so to say, because they are part of the Navagraha, the 9 celestial bodies which hold karma and deliver karma, according to the Vedas, which is the foundation of Vedic astrology. So I hope that explains. So Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto, even though they are planets, they are not grahas, according to Vedic astrology. They don't have the same karmic result as we see that these have. So the avatars have correlating planets. This is a different topic. In the Vedas, everything is personal, including the planets, who are not just floating celestial bodies, but understood to be personalities. So when we study the planets, you understand them very deeply. So accepting this view, at least theoretically, helps one go a long way in the study of Vedic astrology. So we analyze the planets almost as if, personal traits. Well, for example, the sun is confident, powerful, authoritarian, capable, and etc., etc. It sounds like I'm describing a person, isn't it? So, but actually picturing the planets as people with certain qualities, that helps tremendously in understanding a chart, because you're not going to understand them just like, oh, what a planet is doing there. No, you're going to understand it deeply, like, oh, the sun is in the 10th house. Wow, that person will have all the solar qualities, and for example. So Mercury and Buddha. So we spoke about Buddha today. Interestingly, the planet Mercury in astrology is called Buddha in Sanskrit. So there is a correlation here, which you might not know, which I thought to bring out today. So Buddha can also mean the intelligent one. So Buddha is to do with intelligence, which is buddhi in Sanskrit, and Buddha means the intelligent one, or Mercury. Mercury is the planet of the intellect. So the main qualities of a good Mercury are easily seen in the personality of Buddha, who had a very good Mercury. We saw back there in Taurus in the 11th house. So that's interesting, this correlation. But this is a astronomical picture. So we have the sun and we have Mercury. Mercury is very small, and Mercury is always very close to the sun astronomically. And in the charts, you see the same, because the chart is nothing more than a snapshot of the sky at the moment of birth. So when you check the movements of the planets, Mercury is always very close to the sun, always, just like we see in this photo. So Mercury is called Buddha in Sanskrit, and these are some of the main qualities we see of Mercury. I just thought to bring it up since we are talking about Buddha and astrology. We can learn a little bit more about Mercury. So communication skills, that's the main thing that Mercury gives. Buddha himself had a really good Mercury, and he wrote books, gave lectures, created a whole intellectual movement. So very intelligent and memory. He was very compassionate and generous. So a good Mercury makes a person like that very helpful, very supportive, very generous, good sense of humor. I don't know about the humor with the Buddha personally, but definitely he might have had, because a good Mercury, because it's interesting because you got to be smart to create good jokes, you know, so there is a connection with good humor and intelligence. You got to be very able to connect different points and make things funny, isn't it? So that's a result of a good Mercury. And friendship, not the connection of Mercury. Buddha was also very friendly to all, as we heard. Logic and reason is the planet of intelligence and the rationale. So logic and reason is connected to Mercury. Actually, when people have like psychological issues and mental disorders, usually in their charts, they have a weak moon, which is the emotional mind, and a weak Mercury, which is the intellectual mind. So a good Mercury is essential in everyone's life, in everyone's chart. And a very powerful Mercury makes someone like a genius, you know, very intelligent. And another quality of Mercury is neutrality. Mercury is a neutral planet. It's neither feminine nor masculine. It's known to be neutral. There's another very important point, I think, of Buddha and his preachings as well, his teachings, which is seen in Mercury. That's part of the equality, non-judgmental. You just are, you know, you're not this or that, you just are. And a quick learner. Intelligence comes learning and teaching. Mercury is very curious. So the learning and the curious, you know, they are connected. If you're very curious, you want to learn. And if you're very intelligent, you're going to learn fast. So that's really Mercury. And a natural teacher. So we see that also in Mercury. So yeah, these are some of the qualities of Mercury. And before that, I don't know how was the ending time of this session. Since everyone is still here, and we're almost in the end of the session, I just thought to bring one last point, which I forgot to mention in Buddha's chart, which was this point here of the Atma Karaka. Remember we spoke about the Atma Karaka, the life mission planet. You might wonder, what is Buddha's life mission planet? So according to his chart, the life mission planet is the sun. So the sun planet had the highest degree in his chart, which makes the sun his life mission planet. So what does that mean? The sun is a planet of identity and originality and spiritual evolution. So this was his main mission in life, to develop his soul, to enlighten himself. And different planets give the soul different goals in life. But when someone is a highly spiritual being and aims towards spiritual enlightenment, they probably have a sun as the Atma Karaka, or the life mission planet. And then also make him have desire to be alone, People that have this Atmakaraka, they like solitude, they like alone time. They can be impersonal sometimes, which the Buddha also reflected in a way. Right? He said that variety was an obstacle, right? And varieties were illusion. So he was behaving in that way, which is part of his mission. He was to realize these aspects of himself and of life. And the sun also is a planet of the father in astrology. So you have a very strong sun. And when the sun is the Atmakaraka, the life mission planet, that means your father is going to play a major role in your life mission. Now you might be a little confused, like his father seemed to have been stopping him from his life mission by blocking him at the palace. But actually, his father helped him indirectly, because if his father had not hidden from him the harsh realities of life, like disease, old age, and death for so long, it wouldn't have been such a shock to Buddha. If he grew up like most of us, understanding these things, maybe he would have taken it to be normal and we just gone with life. But because it was not normal for him, and then he found it, that was like, wow, it was a clear distinction. So his father indirectly put Buddha in the path of enlightenment by trying to hide the world from him. The father still helped. So these are some of the lessons, or the main lessons that the sun can do and the qualities it gives to someone with a sun Atmakaraka like Buddha. So I hope you have been intrigued and you have learned something today in this presentation. I would like to just finalize with the ways the Vedic astrology can help us. How can Vedic astrology help me, you might ask? Because you spoke about Buddha. What about just people like us? So understanding one's own behavioral patterns, number one. What are my patterns? Why do I do what I do? And what am I doing? So people don't even know they do something again and again. It helps us understand your own strengths, your inclinations, blockages, and beliefs. This is really Vedic astrology can really give you a lot of personal insight and better study choices and better career choices. Sometimes these are seen together. If you know better about your career, what you're going to do in the world, then you might have a better idea of what to study for it. So when I do like a career analysis, we can see that what the studies you most likely will do and will be helpful for your career path. And what does that look like? And because you have better understanding of your own behavior and your own patterns and everything, astrology can also help us improve our family dynamics. Like we saw in Buddha's chart, you could see a little bit about his son and his father. Actually, one more thing about his father being the sign of Pisces, his father was a little bit lost or somehow in a dream. Pisces is a sign of a dream. So his father is a little bit of a dreamer or someone who thinks outside the box. And I think that makes all the sense, because who would have thought of that to lock your child from these realities of life? You kind of create an illusion for him. So that was very much a Pisces thing to do. The father wanted him to live in a dream-like life. So if you understand your chart, you can understand your relatives better, and then you can better deal with them. Because people don't really change that much. What really changes is our perspective of them. So astrology can help us accept people for who they are, accept our karmas. And thus you're going to have better relationships, also romantic relationships as well. That can be highly improved. And we have better planning, business and travel. If you know what's going to happen in the future, there'll be difficult times, there'll be good times. They can plan accordingly, isn't it? And it can be a very good guide for child development. If Buddha's father knew his chart, and I don't know if it's true, but I have seen from references that an astrologer came at Buddha's birth and gave some predictions about Buddha. He knew those alignments were coming in the sky, and he visited the king and he said, this child is going to be a great enlighten the world. And his father didn't like to hear that. He was like, no, okay, he can do that, but he'll do that as a king. So he was very much attached of what he wanted his son to be. But if you really want to help your child, you want to know what they meant to be. What is their own individual mission in life? So you can actually do that by doing your child's chart. And at last, you can also choose the most favorable time to do things. Astrology can help you understand what is the better time to have a meeting, do a business work interview, move, residence, big stuff, get married, travel. So we believe, we not just believe, but we, Vedic astrology is supported on the study and the practice of prediction, and also the opposite of prediction, almost like planning. How can you make the future better by acting according to better alignments? So that's another thing astrology can do. So these are some of the main astrological readings that people do, which are most popular, which is end your prediction. Everybody wants to know the future. What to expect in the next 12 months, travel, children, job change, how to prepare, what to look forward to. These are many readings are there, but these readings are more popular. And self-understanding is definitely number one, because that's the one which speaks, it's kind of what they did for the Buddha's chart today. It speaks about every little house, every little planet. We understand our life much, much better. So yeah, these are some of the main readings which you can do. And the astrology, some people are worried sometimes about the future and about predictions, but it shouldn't be. It's a little bit like a weather forecast. If you know it's gonna rain, you can plan better, isn't it? Let's say you're planning a picnic outside. If you check the weather, you will know if it's a good day or if it's not a good day for that. So astrology can be, we can see it as something like that, a useful tool that can help us better plan our life. So if you like to, so that's what if you want to receive personal astrological insights. These are some of the readings. There are more readings like career, love life readings. And if you feel like you have that mind to actually learn astrology, then you can do some Exploring Vedic Astrology course. This is the one I'll be delivering as a starter course alongside the College of Vedic Studies in Zurich. We're going to have a collaboration, and I'll be doing this online and live course with slides and also PDFs. That's starting from the 14th of Feb until the 13th of March. It's a 1-month course, and today we spoke about very advanced things. We went straight into the chart. In the course, we're going to break it down in 8 lessons. So it will be very, very gradual and very clear. Lots of time for exercise and questions. So this is just a teaser of Vedic astrology we're going to get in this 8 days. It's going to be twice a week, Wednesdays and Sundays. And the early bird price available until the 14th of Jan, which is tomorrow. So if you'd like to register, this is your time. And you can register on my Instagram, or you see a link there for Exploring Vedic Astrology course, or you can also go into the website of the CVS Zurich Temple and the College of Vedic Studies, and there you can register yourself. So yeah, that'll be really interesting. Then there's no rush of time or pressure. Really dive into the astrology course. So what are we going to learn, you might ask? We're going to learn how to read the horoscope, but slowly and, step by step. We're going to learn about the 12 zodiac signs. So one lesson will be just about the signs, then another class just about the houses and and another one for the planets. We're going to learn about astrological vocabulary, what are the words used, how to see patterns and behaviors. At last, some Vedic wisdom and spirituality, a little bit of what we learned today about the soul and karma. So these are the timings for the Central European time. If you're in Europe, they'll be in the evenings on Wednesdays and Sundays. So this is it. If anybody has any questions or comments, this is your time. We have prepared there are other slides if we are more curious, if you want to know more interesting bits of astrology. But if you have any comments on what we have seen today or questions, it's very welcome.
Thank you so much. That was really very interesting. I do have a question around fixed stars and wondering if there were any notable fixed stars that were prominent as well at the time of Buddha's birth.
Fixed stars in the time of Buddha?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, fixed stars, it's actually something called nakshatras in Vedic astrology. So the star is another amazing tool of astrology. So Buddha's the main fixed star we want to know about is the star where the moon was. So Buddha's moon was in this fixed star called Vishaka. Vishaka is the star in the sign of Libra. So remember he had the moon in Libra, the scale. So inside Libra, there are 3 fixed stars. So his star was, the main star was Vishaka. He was born the full moon of Vishaka. So what does that mean? Vishaka is a star of determination. So you can see that's what he was, extremely determined to go beyond and to go all the way to his goal. So people that have this star, they're very determined, very focused, but they have to wait. There is some aspect of patience in their life. Vishaka, the people that have a Vishaka's fixed star, they don't really get things very early in life. Their goals are manifest in the second half of life. Second half of life usually is, of course, you can think of second half as being from 50 years onwards, but in astrology, we actually count it as the age of 30. 30 is the age where whatever things that have been delayed in your chart, they start kind of manifesting from 30. For example, someone has like a late marriage karma from 30 years old, then it's not, how do you call, delayed anymore. They can get married anytime from then. So for Buddha, having a lunar star, fixed star in Vishaka, he couldn't achieve his goal, his life mission, before the age of 30. So he left home at the age of 29, right? And then for 6 years, he did his meditations and he became enlightened at the age of 35. So that was the time where he could do it, so to say. So yeah, his main star is Vishaka in the astrology. Vishaka is a very interesting star. Actually, I made a post on my Instagram. I'm doing a nakshatra series. There's 27 stars. So on my page, I have done. Vishaka is star number 16. It's called the star of purpose. So here I have it. And the nature of the star is influential. Okay. Okay, I think that really describes Buddha in a nutshell. With a lot of purpose and very influential, isn't it? Also, here we have a meaning that Vishaka spreads like the branches of a tree. Just like a tree spreads its branches, these people, they spread their reputation and influence. So he definitely spread very wide as soon as he started. It's so interesting also because Vishaka is connected to a tree, and Buddha went to meditate under a tree, the peepal tree in Bodh Gaya, and he achieved enlightenment under a tree. That's also interesting, connected to his star. So yeah, there are many other things about there's some great people that have the nakshatra and Vishaka also. Buddha, Napoleon Bonaparte, King Charles, and Alexander the Great. Okay, it's not an ordinary star to have. So
Yeah.
some people have had that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Welcome. So?
Govinda, it's me.
Hi, welcome.
Hi, it's nice to see you. I'd like to make a little comment. Like we talk about the Libra moon and
Yeah.
the fact that Buddha was the starter of a nonviolence movement and ahimsa, the concept of ahimsa, maybe it's connected, it can be connected because it was equal to everyone, not only men's, but animals. And so I wanted only to say that it was curious. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. That's a very good point. Yeah, hymns are a huge element of Buddhism, isn't it? Non-violence.
Mm.
So yeah, Buddha was very kind and compassionate. Like we said, he had the moon in Cancer, makes him very empathetic. And the moon in Libra was a full moon, which in Libra, like you said, equal to everyone, but it's also in the fourth house. So it's the house of the heart. So if you have the planet of the ascendant in the house of the heart, that means you're very connected to your heart. And having the full moon there makes you extremely kind and compassionate. So yeah, he went much, further. At that time, it was unthinkable, right? But he really came to change people's views. So yeah, ahimsa. Very good point. How could you not mention that?
It was nice, very nice personality, and so maybe it was even an incarnation of the divine. So through your presentation, I understood why. It seems like he hasn't got bad karma, but all the good qualities, and it was really nice personality person. Thank you.
Well, in my research, I found out a little bit more about the divine Buddha, and it's a bit different than this Buddha.
Okay.
The divine Buddha has a little bit of a different story. It was born at a different time. This Gautama Buddha, the founder of Buddhism, and who was born 600 BC. I have some preparations here, Lord Buddha, the avatar of Vishnu, but I just thought, I just don't want to confuse people today. But I thought it was very interesting for those who have an idea, because if you look on Google, you think, if you ask, is Buddhism connected to Hinduism? Then they're going to show about the Buddha avatar and the incarnation of Vishnu. It is slightly different according to research.
Okay.
Very similar, but not exactly the same, because it seems that the divine Buddha was born 1800 BC, much before Gautama Buddha. And it is also seen here that from the Buddhist scripture, where is it? Yeah, the mention of Buddha in the Buddhist text, that the ones seated on the hallowed earth of the previous Buddha's birthplace is on the path of voidism and renunciation. So which means that Buddha went to Gaya, Gautama Buddha, because it was the place of the birthplace of the divine Buddha. So he was attracted to that place because of the divine Buddha who appeared there much before him.
Okay.
But this is beyond I think the presentation of today.
Yes, sure.
But it's a good point that you made. So we have that.
They are two different person.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought that they were the same. So thank you for
Most people I also thought, actually. So, but reading the books, the Vedas, we find different references.
Okay. Thank you, Govinda. It's interesting.
Very nice. Everybody has so many nice comments and reflections. Thank you so much. I really feel like you were engaged and you're grasping and you have genuine interest. So I feel really happy to have prepared and been here today. Yeah, it's my great pleasure to share this, because I grew up in India half of my life, and the Vedic astrology, karma, philosophy, these things are very much part of my upbringing. And it's just very nice to be able to continue to share it in life. And these presentations like this, and people like you who are interested, it just makes us more inspired. So thank you so much. So yeah. So these are some of the connections. You can find me. I'm just Astro Govinda, very simple, Astro plus Govinda. And I'll be very happy to see you in the course. I'm going to prepare, been preparing for a while now, prepare even more. So if you'd like to join and learn astrology, you're more than welcome. And I feel like you're all ready. So if there's no more questions or comments, then we can conclude the session here.